All right, my friends, welcome back to All Cars Reacts. We are continuing our mid-2000s, mid-sized mini-series with the next of the big three U.S. automakers. We've covered, of course, the big names of the Accord and the Camry. We've covered the Altima, the Sonata. We just did the Malibu, the Mazda 6. I probably only got a couple more before I wrap this up and move on to the next category, but we had to get in what Chrysler Corporation's offering was. And they had killed the Stratus, unfortunately, a name I enjoyed, and brought the Avenger. And, well, we need to talk about this, because, as you can imagine, a late 2000s Dodge, I've got quite a few thoughts about it. So you and I are going to make ourselves comfortable and just chit-chat. We are not going to sit by a fire because it's rather warm today. We are going to grab our beverage of choice, which, just to shock all of you, is an adult beverage of choice. I'm recording this one at night, just so everyone knows. But let's see what Motorweek says about this when it was brand new.
The Avenger nameplate has dressed its share of metal over the years. Now it finds its mark on a mid-size four-door that Dodge hopes will sway a meaningful slice of family sedan sales into their direction. But it will take more than powerfully carved curves and a heady nameplate for this Avenger to become a hero. As Dodge aimed to build a replacement for its mid-size Stratus family sedan, they stepped forth with the same boldness that defines the rest of their lineup. Taking cues from tigers and boxing gloves, Dodge brings to fruition the all-new Sport Fuse 2008 Avenger sedan. Available in 4 trims, SE, SXT, our RT, and RT all-wheel drive, the Avenger boasts the same Dodge gotcha attitude as the full-size Charger. Aggression oozes from the brand's signature crosshair grille and the sinister stare of the large quad headlamps. The hood is stamped with crisp vertical muscle car lines, while the upturned beltline makes way for the Avenger's haunched rear shoulders and short rear deck. As finishers, our car's trunk lid spoiler and dual chrome exhaust tips did the trick.
Before they go on to the engines, we've got to go back and talk about the styling. So I have mixed feelings on this car, as you can probably imagine. The fact of the matter is, I actually saw one of these about 2 weeks ago in the wild and running. And there was that moment of like, oh, look, it's not a bad looking car. And I want to give credit. They didn't try to copy the vanilla-ness of everybody else. And that's on purpose, right? Dodge was building, sometimes good cars, but what made them sporty was a cross-shaped grille. That was really it. But they started to evolve their styling, and they became more right-angled, more angular, more aggressive from, say, the previous generation, certainly the two-door Avenger. Stratus. And anyway, it doesn't quite work, and it falls into the same trap that the Caliber does. So that was a Dodge with this new design language for them of big headlights and big grille and attitude. They have to do the attitude to stand out. They're not trying to out-vanilla the Camry or the Accord or the Altima like maybe the Malibu did. They want to stand out in an American way. So it's like what Mazda tried to do, but in the American muscle car attitude. The problem is, like the Caliber, this looks 9/10 finished. Okay? Like, overall, I like the styling of it. In a bubble, I like the styling of it. But then you start to look at some of the details, like the bumper sticks way out in front of the grille and the headlights, which you don't really see in some of the other brands. The hood from the front goes almost straight across, but then it looks like it cuts off the top of the headlights. it looks like a mistake. Like there's too much space below the actual projector headlights there, and then they chopped off the top of it. Like, what stylist came up with this idea? It doesn't look mean. It looks unfinished or like a mistake. Now at the back, the rear haunches having that rise up, which has become a more of a Dodge trademark than anything else. It looks super aggressive. That appeals to a certain person. And it's not the person who wants generic and vanilla. To me, this just looks like a styling exercise that was never quite refined all the way. Like they just got to a point and like, yeah, that's good enough. And it goes back to the taillights as well. I want to like this car. That's what I'm saying. I want to love this car for its brashness. Like, do the same thing as everybody else, but have some real style, right? And it doesn't. It looks a little crude and a little unfinished to me.
The four-door Avenger jumps to life with one of three power plants, a 2.4-liter double overhead cam inline 4 with variable valve timing, producing 173 horsepower and 166 pound-feet of torque. Next up is an E85 capable 2.7-liter double overhead cam V6 that rates 189 horsepower and 191 pound-feet of torque. Topped off with our RT's 3.5-liter single overhead cam V6, outputting 235 horsepower and 232 pound-feet of torque. The two smaller engines mate to a 4-speed automatic transaxle, while the 3.5-liter is handled by a 6-speed automatic with manual shift mode.
So the 4-cylinder and the top V6, thoroughly competitive with everything else, as you would expect from this very, very competitive category. They came out with engines that are right there, okay? And the V6 is, I'm not going to be overly critical. It's competitive with the Fusion, not necessarily with everybody else. But the 4-speed automatic, and I was critical of the Malibu for the 4-speed, of them being competitive, but not having that extra gear in there. But this is the second time with the Malibu of having a 4-speed for the base and a 6-speed for the top of the line. That can't be for torque. So it must be parts availability. If anybody knows the real reason, I'd like to hear it. Was it purely cost that they went with a 4-speed in several cars and a 6-speed as an option? Or was it the fact that the 6-speed was so new, they just didn't have the production up to produce as many as they possibly could? I suspect it's the latter. But, competitive engines, all right.
Though front drive is the norm, Dodge now offers an all-wheel drive equipped RT, a first for the Chrysler Group in the mid-size segment. Like many all-wheel drive systems, it sends power to the rear wheels only when needed. Electronic stability program with traction control is also standard on the RT all-wheel drive, and it's available on all but the SE, all making sure that power goes where you want it. Our Avenger clocked from 0 to 60 in a respectable 7.2 seconds and through the quarter mile in 15.7 seconds at 90 miles per hour. The 3.5 asserts itself nicely off the line with just the right amount of power for a pseudo sports sedan daily driver. The Avenger RT achieves its street prowess with a sport-tuned all-independent suspension, and though it shares most structure and mechanical bits with the Chrysler Sebring sedan, it felt far more tightly screwed together. The Avenger showed itself to be athletic, nicely balanced, and solid. It stayed relatively flat through the cones, and while pushing like most front...
I'm going to stop it there. Let's go back to the engines. I forgot to mention the middle one, that E85 one. That's weak. Okay, that's the end of that conversation. So 0 to 60, quarter mile performance, it's competitive. All right, I think the 0 to 60 was pretty close to what the Malibu did, but it was a little off the mark miles per hour wise through the quarter mile. I think I want to say this car ends up slightly on the slower side, but I'm not tracking quarter mile times over here on my handy dandy little spreadsheet. But this looks like a hot mess. They may say it feels better screwed together and it's a, pseudo sports sedan, but that was a hot mess. So through the slalom, it didn't look great. It didn't look terrible. But through this quick lane change, that rear end. So what I've talked about is that some of these manufacturers, when it comes through, the rear end continues a little bit. Some of them, and I think the Passat was a great example, it tucked under and continues. This one did this. Did you see that? Let's go back and watch that again.
Athletic, nicely balanced, and solid. It stayed relatively flat through the cones, and while pushing like most front drivers, remained very responsive overall. Standard brakes are...
How can they watch that? How can they show that and not say anything about it? Now, because they didn't mention it, I'm going to assume it was perfectly composed. But that is, I'm going to say, the worst of what we've seen for that one maneuver. Concerning.
This drum with ABS on all but the SE. RT trim adds all disc with brake assist. Halts averaged a slightly long 135 feet from 60 to 0, but were straight and stable.
Not great. Not great. I want you to consider for a second the Malibu. Not a sports sedan. Did it 20 feet long, shorter than this thing. Okay. So in perspective, if you're cruising along at, 60 and you have to slam on the brakes, this thing goes a full car length further than the Malibu. That's not insignificant. Let's look at the interior.
Cabin that's comparable in size to Camry and Accord. The dash layout is typically American, straightforward with large switches and controls. The deep-set white face gauges are sporty and easy to read, while the steering wheel tilts and telescopes. Side and curtain airbags are standard as well. From the Caliber comes the standard chill zone, an in-dash cooling bin for water and soda. Clever heated and cooled cup holders are an option. Our RT came with a standard 6-disc CD stereo with auxiliary jack. Upgrades include a hands-free phone, information center, 20-gig hard drive audio navigation system, and rear seat DVD player. That seat has room for 3 adults, an armrest, and a 60-40 split folding feature. That, along with a front folding passenger seat on all but the base car, more than make up for a somewhat small 13.6 cubic foot trunk. Our Avenger RT.
Oh my gosh, what a hot mess. Tiny trunk, that is by far the smallest of what we've looked at, and this is supposed to be for a family sedan. Back seat looked a little tight, but actually in leg room, it was okay. And that's because what they did is they actually put that hard plastic piece and then cut it in to the back of the front seat. It works out okay. But let's talk about the style. This is a mishmash. And so, okay, so we've got the circular gauges with the silvery chrome trim, but white faces this time because it's sporty. Okay, they're trying to make this into a sports sedan, but none of the numbers are backing that up. So this is all just style at this point. I don't like it. The steering wheel's okay. I don't love that it's two-tone, but whatever. One of the things that's bothering me is if you look at the door handles, they're set in a circle. Now, I've seen that before in cars that have a circular theme, but here it feels very out of place. I'll show you a picture in a minute. And then we've got the rest of it. So, of course, we've got the silvery plastic here, which I don't like. And while there's one step in it between the radio and the HVAC, there's no real definition to it at all. It honestly, for all the world, if it was gold, it would be turning green. That's how cheap it looks. But big knobs, big buttons, big vents, nothing fundamentally wrong with the layout there. It's just ugly, surrounded by the cheapest plastic in the world. Dodge, you can do cheap plastic if you make it interesting, but this is flat panels with a bend in it, big expanses of flat panels. And I think that Chrysler Corporation knew that they weren't investing in the interior like they really should have. because they put in that chiller up above the glove compartment and heated and cooled cup holders. That's actually kind of a cool idea. But that feels for all the world like we've got to give them a gimmick to hide the fact that we took a Fisher-Price truck and melted it down for the interior. This interior is not in the same class as the other ones, even the ones I've criticized. It's more than a step down. This is generations behind in terms of the quality of materials, even if the functionality and ergonomics are, well, pretty good. And this is what I'm talking about the door handle. They put the handle here and then just put a circle around it. Why? Are they mimicking this gigantically huge speaker down here, or are they trying to mimic the gauges? I'm not really sure, but that looks cheap and out of place, not for the least of which is that they do have two-tone. I need to give them credit there. They do have two-tone, which I love, dark top, beige under, and they carry it down the door here. It looks like a kid came up with the layout, and then they stuck a circle there. And it looks like they created a hole and then just slapped something into it. Super, super disappointing. This is exactly how I remember the interior.
Cubic foot trunk. Our Avenger RT has government fuel economy ratings of 16 city, 26 highway. We managed fine test loop of 24 miles per gallon on regular gas. The 3.5's energy impact score is a good 15.6 barrels of oil per year. But select the 2.7 V6 and use E85 and it drops to only 4.4 barrels a year. That beats a Camry hybrid by half.
So, that's kind of surprising because if you look at the EPA's ratings, if that's worse than the Malibu, and I'm not sure that both of them together are the worst of all of them. I'm sure the City is, but then their real world mixed driving of 24 makes it absolutely competitive with everything else. While, the Camry did 26 with a V6, 24, you're in the same ballpark when the Malibu did 20.9. More than a little surprised at the real world results there.
As for pricing, the Avenger SE starts at $18,895. The mid-level SXT at $19,795, while the RT stickers for $23,545. An RT with all-wheel drive jumps up another $2,000 to $25,545. Dodge's new Warrior, the 2008 Avenger, is an aggressive entry into the midsize segment. It adds a shot of sport and muscle to family duties without compromising comfort. For virtually any vehicle, that's quite an accomplishment, and it makes the Avenger an everyday hero.
This car missed the mark for me, and I actually find it sad. So there's that part of me that, like, I want to buy an old car that's I think is crappy and just drive it, right? Because who wants to buy something nice? And this car comes up on that list because if it's reliable, there's nothing wrong with it. It is an unfinished, unfocused product. If you like this car and those prices held true at the dealership, this was a little bit of a deal compared to some of the competitors. It's competitive with the Fusion. It's competitive with the Camry. It's about the price of the Sonata. So in some cases, it's competitive. In some cases, it's a little bit of a deal. But everything else has got higher quality materials. And what I'm struggling with is the looks, okay? I know I'm kind of humming and hawing through it because here's the deal. If you buy this car, you're buying it for the style without anything to really back it up. I do want to give them credit for offering all-wheel drive because that was something that the Fusion added later in its life and helped it stand out a little bit. So good on them. And at the top end, it seems like those prices are really fair. But you're getting the styling that says muscly car, sporty car. Dodge is trying to position this as more of a sporty car, but also you need to heat and cool your drink. And it doesn't really handle or accelerate better than anything else, while also not being more fuel efficient without as much interior space, perhaps. They didn't mention noise, vibration, harshness, the sound level at 70 miles an hour. It'd be nice to have that kind of information too. In an interior with super, super cheap plastic, this is a thoroughly compromised car in almost every way. And it feels to me like there were two different project managers working on it. One who's like, we have to create a sporty car. And the other one's like, no, we need to cut costs and make this family friendly. And you end up with this thing. I see a few. That's the other thing I want to say is that, I saw one a couple weeks ago, but I still see these on the road. And I'm not going to say they look great. That sometimes the paint isn't faded or, it looks kind of sad and worn out. But I still see them on the road once in a while. And they still catch my eye. So if you were a person in 2008-ish, 2009, and you wanted a midsize sedan, but you did not want something vanilla, and the Mazda 6 didn't speak your design language, this was your option. And I think it's probably the worst option that I've looked at in this mini-series that we've been doing. I think that the quality of the materials and the unfinished styling, to my eyes, takes it off the list. But as a fan of really crappy cars and somebody who would love to have a Dodge Aries from like 1982, I wouldn't mind driving one of these for a while and see, is it fulfilling? Or do you come to resent the car every single day? Let me know your thoughts below. I appreciate you being here and spending a few minutes with me. And again, we're almost finished with this mini-series. Have a great one.